Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I wanted to give a little update on everything that has been going on because, a lot of you guys follow me on Instagram and probably saw my community post on here, but just in case you haven't. So Kiritos was hospitalized for congestive heart failure the other day. I guess I'll just explain everything. So I'm gonna probably do like another video after this just on the signs and symptoms of heart disease, because I saw this coming a mile away. I actually been told my regular vet that I thought it was heart related, and she was like skeptical about it because he didn't really show any other symptoms, but I'll just tell the whole thing from start to finish. So around 2 weeks ago, it was probably like 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 now, he started coughing. He was doing this like wheezing type cough, which I'll put a video of it so you guys can hear it. So he started doing that randomly. I heard it in like the middle of the day. It might have been like the evening actually. And then a couple days like after that too, he was doing it, but mostly at night and in the evening. And so initially I started Googling and doing research, and that's like a nighttime cough specifically is very like indicative of heart related symptoms or heart related issues. So immediately that's what I was afraid of, because there was nothing he could have gotten a respiratory infection from, and the rest of them didn't have a problem. So I was like, it's specific to him. If it was the flu, if it was COVID, if it was any like respiratory thing, it typically would have affected more than just him. So I was already afraid of it being heart related because he's 7 and he has every other issue under the sun that a ferret can have, but he's like amazing. Like he's always been consistently very like stable, and even through this he's been. So I brought him to the vet like maybe 2 days after I started hearing the coughing, because I wanted to see if it was just like a 1-day thing. But once it didn't go away for like 2 days, I was like, he has to go to the vet. So I brought him to the vet. They did x-rays, they did chest x-rays, they did they did full body x-rays actually, just to make sure there was nothing going on in his like stomach, GI area anyway, and to check his other organs as well as they could see them through an x-ray. So they did that. They listened to his lungs, listened to his heart. They said everything sounded normal, looked normal. His blood, they did a whole CBC chemistry thing, and everything was normal. Everything was functioning great. So, but they said that the x-rays looked a little bit like his lungs looked a little bit inflamed, but they thought it was just probably because of him. He's been coughing a lot. So then my vet, my vet's the best ever, she honestly said, she's like, I'm gonna be transparent with you, like I don't have really experience with heart related stuff because none of my patients ferrets have ever lived long enough to get heart disease, so I'm not familiar with it. So she showed the x-rays to the radiologist, but he is not an exotic specific radiologist, he just does cats and dogs. So he saw it and he's like, his heart does look a little bit enlarged, but I'm not too sure because I'm not familiar with ferrets. So then they said, if you're concerned about it and if the coughing doesn't go away, she gave me doxycycline, an antibiotic, to see if it would help that if it was respiratory related, and it didn't really help. It did for like a couple days, I thought, but then I heard him doing it a lot at night again, especially on the camera that I have down here, like pointed at their cage. He was just coughing all night long. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do the cardiology appointment. So I ended up booking that. That was this past Monday. He went in for a consult because, of course, like, nothing is easy with that stuff. They never will take you in for like the EKG or ECG and ultrasound the day of. So he had to go, and the exotic vet's like over an hour away, of course. So I took him there on Monday. They said, yeah, he looks great for his age. Nothing too significant other than he has a heart arrhythmia and a heart murmur. So I was like, okay, great. I knew it was heart related from the beginning. So then they said, but unfortunately, since it's 3 p.m., we can't do the ECG today. You have to bring him back tomorrow and drop him off in the mornings because we don't know when the cardiologist will be able to do it. So I was like, oh, fine. Like, it's frustrating to drive that far with him because he will like try to scratch at the cage carrier, and like try to get out the whole time. So he's just working himself up the whole time. Like, and especially the fact that it's a heart thing, you have to keep their stress to a minimum level. So his heart, like he's just getting all worked up. So I was like, that's my only option, fine. So that night I brought him home. He was acting normal. Oh, and his appetite was very like minimal at this point. He was still energetic. He still wanted to run up the stairs. He was still pulling at the cage, to the little like gate that I have, just so when I'm not home, I don't like when they run up the stairs in case somebody else at my house opens the door. So he was pulling at that, trying to get out. So he still has his like activity levels were normal. but he did not want to eat his regular food, and eventually he stopped eating treats. He didn't want to take any treats, so I knew that that was weird because he's a little treat fiend. So then anyway, he was fine that night. I gave him food. He put himself in the cage. He even did like a little, I call them his pull-ups because he doesn't even use the ramps to get to the levels. He did a little pull-up into the cage, went in his hammock, and then he was in there for the rest of the night. So the next morning I came downstairs to let them out, probably like 7-ish, because I had to bring him to drop him off at 8, and he was breathing really rapidly, and he was like making this like I'll just put a video of it. And so I immediately started freaking out. I was like, what is going on? Like, what is wrong? And I knew that it was something like dire, but I was taking him anyway. So I got him in the car. I drove all the way down to Red Bank. That's the vet that is the exotics like specialist in New Jersey. So I drove him there. They basically said I had to drop him off. Thank goodness I brought his chicken baby food, which I had made another video on this and like a TikTok about it too, actually, and I put it on my YouTube shorts. As chicken baby food is one of like the emergency items that I think is essential to have, just because they always generally take to it, and it's just good to have something in their system. Like if they're not eating, like it's obviously not a sustainable diet at all, but like just to get something in their system, it's very well digested, and it's a great thing to have is chicken baby food. So I brought that with me because he was still eating that. So I took him in. I went home. Mind you, he's still trying to get out of the cage. He's still working himself up in the car. So they call me as I'm pretty much home, like driving an hour and a half away because there's so much traffic. This is like still, mind you, 8:30 in the morning, and I have a whole day of work. So they call me and they go, oh, we just finished with the ECG on him, I guess because they did him quickly because he was like in a not great state. And they said, yeah, he has dilated cardiomyopathy, which I had a feeling he would have because just based on all the research that I'd been doing. And they said, and he's currently in heart failure, so congestive heart failure. I'm like, and I do what with that information? So they're like, yeah, we want to look at his abdomen, see if there's any fluid in there. We want to do an abdominal ultrasound. I said, okay, sure. Then they were like, and we have to mildly sedate him. So if we sedate him, do you want us to revive him? And at that point, I'm in like hysterics. Seriously, I'm like, well, I don't know, like he's already in heart failure, he's so miserable, like I don't know what did I do, like whatever, just that whole thing. I was like, I don't know, I guess not, I don't want you to put him through more stress. And so they were like, we're gonna do everything we can, blah blah blah. So they call me after that and they're like, he did great, nothing, he obviously survived the ultrasound and the sedatives. They said, do you want us to stabilize him and see if we can get him home to you, and then you can continue his regimen at home? But in my head, I'm like, heart failure, like I have never had any experience with any animal with heart failure, and especially not the ferrets. So I was like, yeah, can you do that? Because like when you hear heart failure, you're like, geez, like that's you can't come back from heart failure. So I thought. So they're like, yeah, we can put him on a diuretic to clear out any fluids, and we can put him on like a heart medication, but it has to be done intravenously. So they did all of that. He had to be in an oxygen like tank thingy. It literally looked like he was in like an aquarium. So he was in a little oxygen aquarium. They had him on a heating pad, all this stuff to regulate his temperature. He wasn't regulating it on his own. So they kept him that day, and then they called me at night and they said to me, you know, do you want to come visit him? Like I don't want to deprive you of that if in case something happens overnight. And so I'm like, I tell you, I'm like in hysterics. I spent over 4 hours in the car just there and back that day, plus like my job throughout, and I was just like so anxious and so nervous. So I drove there to see him. He was so cute. He had his little like catheter in his arm. He was it looked like he was in a fish tank with no water. He was in his bed. They had his baby food. They had some like Wysong pellets that he didn't even want, and then they had his carnivore care that was there. And so the tech was like, she was so nice. She was like, yeah, he has to be in this oxygen chamber, like he's not producing enough on his own. We're gonna see how he does throughout the night. But she was like preparing me for if things go horribly. She's like, yeah, if he doesn't do well overnight, like you can bring the other 3 ferrets tomorrow if you wanted to say goodbye, and like all this stuff if you had to make a decision. I'm like, my main concern is him being comfortable. Like it makes me sick to my stomach thinking about him being uncomfortable. Like it genuinely makes me like physically ill. So I was like, okay, like I want you guys to try everything you can do tonight, and then just let me know how he is tomorrow. I'm like up the whole night because they say if anything happens, we'll call you if it's an emergency. So I get no sleep, of course. They call me in the morning. They're like, okay, so he's doing better. He's not on oxygen anymore, and he's regulating his own temperature, but he's still like not great. He's still pretty like lethargic. He's not really doing much. He's not really eating other than the baby food, which I'm like, I knew it. I knew he would eat the baby food. She's like, he's about 30% better. Like, we want to keep him for the rest of the day, and then we'll let you know, and then we'll pretty much go from there. So I'm like, okay, fine. They keep him rest of the day, whatever. They call me again in the evening. So I'm like, okay, no news is good news, as they say, right? Like, they didn't call me with any emergencies. Same thing in the evening. They're like, he's still stable, but he's still like very quiet. I guess they phrased it. They're like, he's not as active as we would like him to be. I'm like, well, he did just go into heart failure, like, and he's not eating his normal food. Like, of course he's gonna be a little meh. But I was like, yes, anything to keep him safe, keep him comfortable. So then the next morning she calls me. Mind you, I'm still up the whole night because I'm like, anything could go wrong. I'm like terrified. I'm so anxious. They call me the next morning. She goes, he's doing amazing. Like, he's doing so much better. I'm so happy with his progress. He's regulating his temperature on his own. He doesn't need the oxygen anymore, and he's walking around. He's trying to escape. One of the vet techs was like, yeah, he's been crawling in and out of my sleeves. Like, everybody's been playing with him. He's the sweetest, whatever, all these positive things. So I was so happy. So she called. Then they said that I can take him home that evening. So long story short, I got him that evening. Everything went well. He's still doing very well for a ferret that went into heart failure. And basically it, like, there was essentially nothing I could have done or known. Like, that's what they told me too. They're like, they're such stoic animals, and in the wild, I mean, ferrets aren't in the wild, but where their ancestors, where they're bred from, like, since they're predators and prey animals, they hide their illnesses so well until it's like detrimental. So the only signs that I really noticed, that I'm gonna make another video on it to go more into detail, was I didn't even really notice his like breathing rate was quicker, but his hind legs were kind of weak. But I honestly attributed that to him being old. Like, he's over 7 years old. I thought it was just maybe like joint issues or like arthritis or something. So occasionally when he would run, he would kind of like not fall over, because he would just get right back up and like run again, but like his back legs, he would kind of like lean to the side and like flop a little bit and then get back up and start running. And then the coughing, those are the only two signs I noticed. And then like a week or two, like probably like a week before the heart failure happened, he didn't really want to eat much. Those are the only things, but they happened so quickly. Like, it was crazy how fast it happened. But that's like a trend that I notice happens with ferrets a lot of the time. Things happen very fast. Yeah, so they sent him home with me. So right now he is on a diuretic. He's on Lasix every 12 hours. He's on Pimobendin for his heart every 12 hours. And he is on, right now, I think it's just for the 12 days because he had like some diarrhea when he was there, obviously, because he was eating a different type of food, which it was just like a stomach lining coating medication. I forget what it's called. And then he's on his prednisolone for his insulinoma. But they fasted him for 3 hours there too to check if his blood glucose levels were normal, and they were. So thankfully, like, everything's being maintained well on the prednisolone. And then his kidney and liver values were normal. Like, everything's functioning normal and well, other than his heart, because I guess he's old, and that's what happens. Your heart muscles weaken over time, and then it ends up like replacing it with scar tissue, and then everything's not circulating properly. It's what happens when you're an old man. So yeah, that's pretty much it. He's home. I feed him, I'm feeding him as like consistently as I can anyway. A lot of times I still have to spoon feed him, but he's been taking treats again. Finally, I'm so happy. Today was the first day that he took treats and he ate them. He ate a freeze-dried heart, he ate a freeze-dried chicken neck, and he ate a freeze-dried chicken breast. And then I still have to spoon feed him his food, because now he knows he gets baby food. He's so spoiled, like, he deserves the baby food. He freaking had heart failure. But now he's like looking for the baby food, and he like turns his nose at his normal food sometimes. But I give him carnivore care a lot too, to supplement it, to make sure he eats every couple hours, just because they can lose weight so quickly with this. It does like mess with their appetite, as well as his insulinoma. So like, I'll make sure he eats and everything before work. Then if I have a break during work, I'll come home, make sure he eats, and then after work I make sure I feed him, and then I feed him before bed. It's just, I make sure he has a whole thing. But so he gets medicine 12 hours or every 12 hours. So I'm trying to regulate it so it's like 7:30 and 7:30, because now I start work pretty early, so I'm like an early riser these days, so I try to do it 7:30 a.m., 7:30 p.m. So he gets pimobendan, he gets Lasix, I forget what the stomach one is called, and then he gets prednisolone. And then same thing in the evening minus the prednisolone. He only gets that in the morning. So then I have to bring him back in 2 weeks, and they're going to check his kidney values again. And then if everything is normal and good, he gets to go on 2 more heart medications. Yay! And they last. He'll be on them for the rest of his life. But I don't mind. I would quite literally do anything for him. And like my whole thing is like, I just want him to be comfortable. That's the only thing I care about. I want them to be happy and comfortable and content. That's it. So I'm like, I'm very grateful that I decided to go through with the like treatment of it and to see if they could stabilize him, because they kept saying to me, they're like, you have the option, like it is a progressive disease, it will come back, we just don't know when. There's ferrets that have lived up to 2 years with this, or it comes back in a week. Like, it's a chance that I was willing to take, because even if it came back like sooner than later, I would know, okay, like it's meant to be, like it came back. But I would feel terrible if I didn't at least try to stabilize him and get him home and like give him the rest of his life as happy and comfy as possible. So that's what I'm doing. He's actually sleeping right next to me. You can't see him, I don't think, but let me see. There he is. There he is. And yep, that is pretty much it. I mean, we're just gonna go from here. Like I said, I'm gonna make probably another video going more into depth on the symptoms of it, or the signs and things to look out for, especially as they get older. Apparently it's a very common thing if if the other diseases don't get them beforehand, like insulinoma, cancer, adrenal, lymphoma, same, I mean that's cancer too, but just all of those, a blockage, GI things, whatever, like if they somehow get to dodge all of those, their heart will probably give out, which is just the way of life. It's just how it is when you get old, So I'm just trying to make sure that I can give him the best life he could possibly have. And that's it. That's the updates I have for you guys. I will probably also give some more updates when he gets on the other meds in 2 weeks. As long as his kidney values are good, I will update you guys on our journey. So yeah, please keep him in your thoughts. Please give him positivity, prayers, whatever you do, just send us some goodness, okay? Thank you. I appreciate it. Love you. Bye.